Hello everyone. Today I'm back with another video on poetry. Hope everyone enjoyed my first video on the novel The Vendor of Sweets. If you haven't watched it, I will put the link in the description box below. Today I thought that I will do a video on the poem Once Upon a Time. This is a poem that you have to study in grade 11 first term. Since we could not hold first term examination this year, I thought that it would be better if I just go through these poems. If you like this video, give a thumbs up and subscribe by pressing the bell icon below. This poem can be applied to any country, especially if it was affected by westernization. So without further ado, we will go to the video. The question that I am going to discuss today is, the poem Once Upon a Time brings out the contrast between the past and the present. Do you agree? Justify your answer giving examples from the poem. So as we discussed earlier, we have to find the key phrases in this question. They are contrast, past and present, do you agree, and examples. In this type of question, where you have to agree or disagree, you clearly have to state your position in the answer. Clearly mention whether you are for or against this statement, and then you have to show the difference between the past and the present societies. You can do this in two ways. The first way is you can mention facts or things in the past, and later you can discuss about the characteristics of people in the present. The second way is you can alternatively provide facts mentioning situation in the past and how that particular situation or characteristic has changed in the present. In this video, I am going to engage the second method. So from the next slide onwards, we would analyze how you have to build up your answer. Now in the first paragraph, you can write the introductory line and then you can state what your stand is in the question. When we look at this question, we'll have to agree with this statement because, of course, the poem discusses about the changes occurred in African society. So as an example, we can say, the poem Once Upon a Time, written by an African poet, Gabriel Okara, brings out the contrast between the past and the present. In the poem, he illustrates the changes happened in African society, which had its own age-old, rich culture. You know that not only Nigeria, which is the native place of Okara, but also almost all the countries in the African region had a great culture which was shattered to the ground with the exposure to other cultures. The virtues the people who lived in the past had were forgotten, and new identities which were built on pretentiousness and hypocrisy were embraced by these people. So the poem talks about the negative transformation of the society due to the influence of westernization and modernization. In the next couple of slides, I'm going to prove this point using certain examples from the poem. Okara talks about the genuine and warm nature of the people who lived in the past. They laughed with their hearts and eyes, which means that they have no hidden malintentions. They show warmth and concern for others. But quite contrastively, people who live in the present society are dishonest. And instead of warmth, they show coldness towards others. They only laugh with their teeth, which depicts their pretentiousness. Not only that, they search behind the narrator's shadow, which symbolically means that they look for others' weaknesses just to spite them. Next, we would discuss another fact. In the past, people had genuine friendships and intimacies. Shaking hands is not only a way of greeting but also a way of extending friendship. In the past, people did this with their whole heart, and also in those times, qualities and virtues were the main concern. People were considered good or bad by measuring them with the qualities they have. But now, everything has changed. Now people show only fake affections. Though they extend their hands, they no longer do it with their hearts, but do it without hearts. At present, people are measured not by their virtues, but by their money and wealth they have. If a person is empty-pocketed, then he is considered as a worthless person. This is because of the influence of the capitalistic society in which money is everything. So the narrator says that while people shake hands using their right hands, the left hand search his empty pockets. The narrator laments about this negative transformation. Then if we move on to the next slide, here also I have pointed out some contrastive features between the past and the present. In most of the earlier societies, before they were corrupted by the exposure to other cultures and traditions, people were honest, truthful, sincere, and also they had great hospitality. Not only in African region, as Okara points out, but also in our Sri Lankan culture too, people were very hospitable. They treated their guests like their kings. And people in the past were truthful and authentic. They openly exhibited their true emotions. People were sincere about others. They looked after one another. Whenever they could, people used to help one another. That is the past that the narrator draws before us. But then he points out that the present is totally different from that. Today people are filled with deception, pretentiousness and insincerity. So, to prove that, the narrator explains how people show pretentious hospitality by asking them to feel at home. But when the person feels so, he would not be accepted again into their house. The reason is, people's politeness is only a facade. There is no genuine sincerity or concern for others. Then the poet explains how people have become false and pretentious. They don't show their true face. There are different faces they show at different occasions. This multitude of faces represents that people always pretend and they don't like to reveal their true selves. And also, the poem engages a simile, which is like a fixed portrait smile. The smiles on portraits never change, and also they are not genuine. They are there just for the sake of appearance. So this simile emphasizes about the insincerity of people. By this fact also we can understand how virtues are lost when people are transformed into the present day society. Moving on to the next slide. Here again I have pointed out differences between the past and the present. Another trait or characteristic of people in the past is their sensitivity and overall satisfaction. They did not go after money or fame. They were contented with what they had. Further, they helped people who were in need. But what has happened to the present day people? According to the narrator of the poem, these individuals are filled with hypocrisy and corruption. They are insensitive. The narrator says that with the influence of the society, he too has to become that kind of a person. He has learned to say goodbye when he actually means good riddance. And then again he says that he has learned to say glad to meet you when he is not glad at all. Here we can understand how deep he has gone in this gruesome pit of hypocrisy and corruption. He also says that his laugh in the mirror is like showing a snake's bare fangs. This reveals the viciousness and cruelty of the people in the present day world. Then we can proceed to talk about the importance of the title to prove this point. The phrase "once upon a time" is the typical opening line of every fairy tale. I think you must have listened to hundreds such fairy tales when you were small. So, why do you think the poet has employed such a title? As I think, it is because the man in the poem has a desire to go back in time and regain the childlike innocence that he possessed earlier. This shows the contrast between his past and the present life. The last fact I'm going to talk about is how the poem begins on a negative tone and ends with a positive tone. So when you go through the poem, you can see that the man complains and laments on the changes he sees in his culture and himself. In the beginning part of the poem, you can see this, but when the poem comes to its end, the man sees hope in his son, who has not been affected by these negative changes, and therefore he asks him to teach him the old ways and help him to regain earlier innocence. There we can understand that the poet did not like his present status, and he wants to move back to his past. Now we have come to the final part of our answer. You have to write the concluding paragraph here. So in conclusion, you can write a summary of the things that you have written so far. And also, as I always tell you, there's one thing that you have to remember. You have only 30 minutes to write your answer. Therefore, you may not be able to write all these facts, but you'll at least have to write a detailed description about at least 3 of the facts that we have discussed here in this video. So in conclusion, we can mention that the poem talks about the contrast between the past and the present, and also the poem discusses about the narrator's need to go back in time to embrace the genuine, innocent way of life in the past. So there we can understand And we have clearly pointed out the differences between the past and the present. So that would be the conclusion of your answer. And that's it for today. So we will meet from our next video. Have a nice day.